Friends, this is my dirt jumper. You kind of know it well, and by its nature, it's a little hammered and kind of creaky right now. I think I could probably eliminate those noises and make some performance improvements without having to buy any parts, I think. I mean, truthfully, all the noises it's experiencing currently is because of my neglect. I'm gonna give it some opposite of neglect. This show is called Tinker Tuesday, and it's brought to you by my friends over at Park Tool. Now, I won't lie, the creaks and pops and problems on this thing are no mystery. I can replicate the popping without effort here on my ramp. And it's very obvious it's coming from the crank area. Next is the complete lack of power from my brakes. They don't even have enough bite to do a simple tire tap right now, despite grabbing a handful of lever. And I know exactly why both of these problems are happening. The first bit, that creaking and popping bottom bracket, well, that stems from the tool I used to install it. Channel locks. And when I use channel locks on bikes, because I don't have the right size adjustable wrench, I tend to not put the correct amount of torque onto it because these aggressive teeth, while they're nice for grip, tend to destroy cups and whatever fastener you're actually using. There's a good chance that this bottom bracket is just not tight. Hopefully not wrecked from riding it like that for too long. And then the brake, well, I swapped a TRP lever into a Shimano system and didn't bleed it. I just put it together and called it a day. So obviously that's coming back to bite me in the, so I really should give it a proper bleed. And then once those two things are done and everything is greased and back together, hopefully at the torques they need to be, there won't be any creaking or popping, and the brake will be working properly to actually execute tricks. To manage my expectations and to get the lesser satisfying of the two tasks out of the way, I'm gonna start with a gravity bleed on this brake. This brake was never very powerful before I mixed the TRP lever in, but I definitely made it worse by just bolting it in and doing nothing else. The hope is that this bleed will bring it back to the underwhelming power it had before I got my grubby tinkering hands on it. You know, to the kind of power level where the rear wheel will actually kind of lock up if you do grab an entire handful of brake lever. And my expectation is kind of nothing more. And honestly, after the bleed with the air bubbles out of the system, it does feel pretty good applying pressure with the bleed block in, but that's always misleading and not representative at all of what it'll actually feel like. We won't really know what we got for a performance gain out of this bleed until we get the bike on the ground, but next up is fixing that creaking and popping. Well, these are not crunchy, but they're not the worst ever. No. It's like finger tight, basically finger tight. So while the bearings in this cup aren't perfect, they're pretty good. I would say with some grease and proper tightening, all that noise will be gone. Like this spindle kind of came out almost dry. I had to hit it pretty hard to get it out. Or how loose this bearing is. No, tighter, definitely tighter. So I'm just gonna wipe out any of the old stuff that's in there. Make room for the new stuff that I'm gonna put in. Big fan of looking at bikes. Big fan. But we should probably see if we solved some problems here. Now, we should know if we've eliminated the bottom bracket pops and creaks pretty quickly. They were very apparent. I'll just ride around in this space, and if it doesn't pop and crack, to go from a popcorn machine to quiet and dial. Kind of no surprise there, but extremely satisfying to eliminate those bottom bracket creaks. It always is fun to take something that's making a pile of noise and shut it up. What a satisfying thing to do. And if bike mechanics is new to you, this makes sense that it would solve that issue, because essentially what was happening before was there's a piece of metal like this and another piece of metal that were just able to move against each other when any sort of force or pressure was applied. And when those two materials move across each other, they make noise. So if you tighten them down to a point where they can't move anymore, and then on top of that, add some sort of lubrication, it's gonna shut it up. There was a time I worked in a shop, and specialized Cirruses from that era when I worked in shops were really bad for coming in with dry bottom brackets out of the box. And depending on who built the bike, if they didn't open it, grease it, and torque it down properly, they typically came back with customers complaining that it was making a pile of noise. The fix was always pull the cranks off, pull the bottom bracket out, grease it, retighten it, good to go. So that's all the creaking and popping dealt with. The brake. No doubt it is an improvement, but like I said, the power from this brake, very underwhelming. I would definitely never trust that brake on like a huge Fufanu or something. It would hurt you. But for the sake of this Tinker Tuesday, we did manage to eliminate all of the creaks and pops from this bike and improve its performance a little bit without buying anything, without buying any parts. So, with that satisfying conclusion, that brings us to the end of this episode of Tinker Tuesday. Check out Park Tool in the links below. They are the only tool company supporting your favorite creators the way they do. So show them some support by checking out the link below. If you want to support this show specifically, there's a little thing down there called Super Thanks. It's a little donation to add to your comment, and then I'll highlight it here the next week on the next episode to show that there's support for this show to continue on. Okay. I think it's finally time that we build this thing.